I've lived in a suburban neighborhood in Ohio for about 6 years now. After what happened last October, I lock every single window and door the moment the sun goes down. I was 22, living alone. It was a Thursday night around 2:15 a.m. I was in my living room wearing headphones and playing video games. When I paused my game to get a glass of water, I heard it. Pause. Slow, heavy scratching, followed by a violent thud on my front door. Scratch. Thud. 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 I peeked through the peephole. Standing on my porch was a man in a delivery driver's uniform. He was holding a large cardboard box. He looked normal, except he was shaking violently. His head was turned backward, staring at the empty street. "Can I help you? It's 2 a.m, I shouted through the wood. The moment I spoke, the man stopped shaking. He slowly snapped his head toward the door. His eyes were wide open, but there were no pupils, just empty white sockets leaking a dark, thick fluid down his cheeks. He dropped the box. It hit the porch with a hollow thud, and a foul metallic smell of rotting blood leaked through the door gap. Suddenly, he reached into his pocket, pressed a button, and my car's alarm blared in the driveway. He had my spare keys. He didn't get into my car. He dropped on all fours like a spider and slid underneath my vehicle, waiting for me to come outside. I immediately dialed 911. When the police arrived, the man crawled out and sprinted into the woods with supernatural speed, running on his hands and feet backward. The next day, the police opened the box. It was a high-end monitor live streaming a video feed. The camera was hidden inside the air vent directly above my bed. That wasn't the worst part. When the police checked the footage from the previous night, they found that the man had been crouching inside my closet for 3 hours while I was playing games, just breathing heavily and holding a rusty knife, before he decided to walk out the front door and knock. I work as a night shift delivery driver for a local pizza place in a small town. It's usually a boring job, but 3 months ago I had an encounter that made me quit on the spot. It was a Tuesday night around 1:45 a.m. The store was about to close when a final order came through an online app. The address was for an old, abandoned industrial area at the edge of town, a place where no one had lived for over 20 years. I told my manager it was probably a prank, but he insisted I go anyway because the order was already paid for with a credit card. The drive was pitch black. There were no streetlights, and my car's headlights were the only thing cutting through the thick fog. When I finally reached the location, I found myself in front of a massive, rusting warehouse with shattered windows. I put the car in park, keeping the engine running, and looked at my phone. A message popped up from the customer. Bring it inside. The door is open. I left a big tip on the table. Every instinct told me to drive away. I needed the money. I grabbed the pizza box, turned on my phone's flashlight, and pushed open the heavy metal door of the warehouse. Pause. The smell inside was horrific. It smelled like wet rust, damp mold, and something metallic like raw meat left out in the sun. I walked into the main room and saw a dirty wooden table under a single flickering bulb. On the table was a crisp $50 bill. Next to it was an old iPad glowing in the dark. I walked over, dropped the pizza, and picked up the cash. As I did, I glanced at the iPad screen. It was running a strange tracking app with a satellite map of the warehouse. On the map, there were 2 dots. A blue dot, which was me, standing right at the table, and a red dot, which was labeled customer. My eyes widened as I looked closely at the map. The red dot wasn't in another room, it was directly on top of my blue dot. I slowly looked up at the ceiling. Pause. Crouching on a rusty metal beam directly above the table, just 10 feet above my head, was a man. He was completely naked, his skin deathly white and stretched so tightly over his ribs that I could count them. His jaw was completely dislocated, hanging down to his chest. His mouth was filled with thick, black oil that was slowly dripping onto the pizza box below. He was staring directly down at me with wide, unblinking eyes. In his hand, he was holding a smartphone, and I could see the glowing screen tracking my location. The moment our eyes met, he didn't make a human sound. He let out a wet, clicking noise from the back of his throat. Click, click, click. He began to slide down the rusty pillar toward me with terrifying, insect-like speed. I dropped my phone, turned around, and ran faster than I ever have in my life. I burst through the warehouse doors, jumped into my car, and slammed my foot on the gas pedal. As I tore out of the dirt driveway, I looked in my rearview mirror. A man was standing in the middle of the road under the moonlight. He was holding my dropped phone in one hand, and with the other, he was waving at me, using a severed human hand that wasn't his own. I drove straight to the police station, and they searched the warehouse. An hour later, the man was gone. They found a sleeping bag hidden behind some crates, a pile of bloody clothes belonging to a missing person, and a tripod with a camera that had been live streaming the entire encounter to a deep web horror site. The title of the stream was The Last Delivery.